WTOL-TV, Toledo. Straight from the newsroom, this is Toledo 11 News.
Just another day on the job for a YMCA worker.
Until she came across this.
Were set up and students were painting welcome signs.
It wasn't quite the thrill of the open road, more like the parking lot of Perrysburg Commons.
It will make its debut.
Just about the only event making news today.
2,000 carryout orders were handled.
Welcome into the Vault on WTOL 11 News. With me, I'm Dan Cummins. We probably watched the news or read the paper some days and thought, slow news day, huh? We're breaking into the archives to find those stories that'll make you think just that. Like this guy, Twiggy the water skiing squirrel. He's kind of become the mascot of the slow news day. From checking out the great Toledo toilet debate to dressing up as a gorilla to pay off a bet. Plus, does one Toledo 11 icon have anything purple to wear? We're packing in the oddball, the offbeat, their irresistibly fun shows. Even when the news slows down, the good stories never stop. So what is a slow news day? You could say it's not a bad thing. Usually means there's no major crime, accidents, government action, or weather events. So we get to highlight unique voices and people, or even revisit fun or unusual stories that might not otherwise be told. Sometimes that means the same story again and again and again, year after year. Yeah, I've even told this one. Let's kick off ahead of Super Bowl 20. It's the Bears against the Patriots. And have you heard this one? All the footballs for the big game are made right here in Northwest Ohio in Ada. I'm going to hand it off to Dick Berry.
Marguerite Bolin is making the official Super Bowl ball official. It's Marguerite's job to stamp the names of the Patriots and Bears on the New Orleans-bound balls.
Just it makes you proud to know that when you sit down and watch it on television, that to know that you're the one that helped make it.
Like Marguerite, the 120 workers at the Wilson Football Factory in Ada, Ohio, are proud to sew, stitch, and turn inside out the symbol of the NFL. 72 balls will be on hand for the showdown at the Superdome. If I were to take one of those balls, walk into a bar in Foxborough or Chicago tonight, how much could I sell it for?
You could just about name your own price, I would imagine. They'd be very popular, I'm sure.
Now, the next time you hear somebody refer to a football as a pigskin, they're wrong. Actually, all the footballs that are made by Wilson are cowhide.
Every NFL ball that is made here is made exactly the same way. There's a slight variation possibly in the quality, the way it's sewn or something like that, but each ball is made exactly the same, and then they're graded.
So remember, Jim McMahon and Tony Eason, the pressure's on to do good. Margarita and all of Ada will be watching. Dick Berry, Toledo 11 News, Ada, Ohio.
So the idea of a slow news day doesn't mean a bad news day, just means the journalists that work to serve you and our communities are getting creative. Stories that might not cut it on another day to get a chance. Just listen to this one from Stuart Watson.
This is a story of 20,000 beer drinkers in search of a bathroom. Nature's call has proven anything but simple for council to answer. After 15 months, 7 votes, and mounds of paperwork, council has decided to resubmit the original plan for bids and to take bids on a new proposal.
You know, it's a decision time, folks. We need to make a decision today.
But no decision was forthcoming. Mayor Owens and Councilman Steve Yarborough were voted down. Both sought a decision today on where to build the bathrooms. Some want this children's sculpture moved from the site of the bathroom, yet close enough to the hub of the park that parents can keep an eye on their kids. Others worry the plan for toilets at Jefferson and Water Streets will block the southward growth of riverfront development. Some fret the view from downtown will change for the worse. Still others are concerned with the cost, and everyone agrees it's taken too long for the outhouse to be dug.
I've lived with this situation for 14 years when we used to use the Waldorf as the restrooms.
Council's latest step means spending another $11,000 on the project, another 6 weeks, and risking more than $200,000 in federal funds, and then leaving open the option of returning to the plan they've considered all along. Stuart Watson, Toledo 11 News.
So it's January 15th, 1986. U.S. automakers are topping the charts when it comes to sales. Families are buying the Chevrolet Celebrity or the Ford F-Series pickup. But Dick Berry shows us Yugoslavia is looking to break into the U.S. market.
It's the latest car to enter the domestic mini-compact market, the Yugo, a 4-cylinder, 1.1-liter vehicle from Yugoslavia. The price tag is an eye-catcher, just under $4,000. The reasons? 60-cent an hour labor and in-house parts manufacturing.
They mine their own coal, they mine their own iron to make steel, they mine their own copper, has a solid copper radiator. They make their own glass, make their own rubber, make their own fabrics.
24,000 Yugos have been shipped to the U.S. Only 277 dealerships will sell them. Now, to qualify for a Yugo franchise, dealers must agree to send their mechanics through a special training program. Not only that, but 100,000 Yugo spare parts must always be kept in stock. And George Ballas has no problem selling an Iron Curtain product.
The only country in the world, in the whole world, that we trade with, that we have a favorable balance of payments with, is Yugoslavia.
Ballas thinks downsized cars will continue to grow in popularity and wants to be part of it. So far, he's sold 60 Yugos to the young, the old, and folks who want a third family car.
The color purple has been popular in media and entertainment for decades, from the one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eater in 1958 to the color purple in 1982, even Prince's Purple Rain, 1984. But on January 17th, 1986, the color inspired its own store in Northwest Ohio. And on another slow news day, Amy Ashcroft took us shopping there.
The Purple Place, a 2-month-old shop in Portside that caters strictly to those who have a passion for purple. Fashion editors say purple is hot this season. So are sales of t-shirts and sweats at this shop.
There you go. Very much. Thank you. Have a nice day. You too.
I love purple. I always have. I liked it before it was popular. I have 2 rooms in my house that are purple.
Me, purple doesn't do me one thing or another, but it sure does my daughter. She loves it.
I like it, but I think it's more, like generated towards the younger crowd. But I like it. I like to wear it.
So how do you know if you're a purple person? Well, they have sweatshirts that tell you. It says the purple profile includes imaginative, sensitive, artistic, and sophisticated people.
Since it's not enough to wear this powerful color, there are scads of purple trinkets to surround yourself with.
Earrings, pencils, change purses, teddy bears, dolls.
Although the Purple Place caters primarily to women and children, the specialty shop says men will often purchase purple presents. Sales clerks here, though, just hope purple stays popular so their jobs won't fade away. Amy Ashcroft, Toledo 11 News.
What's happening in your local school is always important news, from policies to safety. There's something to talk about in every district, but on this day, the news was about something else. A banana, a gorilla, a bet. And of course, Dick Berry.
The 300 kids at Powell Elementary in North Baltimore have made a monkey out of the school principal. Gary Ogg said he'd wear a gorilla suit to class if the kids read 9,000 books by the end of the school year. He lost, they won by reading 9,639 books. That's 400,000 pages. How many books did you read?
About 7, 8. About 8. 5. 8.
8 books. What was your favorite one?
Probably about the Miami Dolphins. Karate Kid. Transformers. Miss Know-It-All.
The best third grader, this person read 81 books.
Ogg made the challenge after complaints from parents and teachers students weren't motivated to read.
I've gotten some feedback from parents that have said that some of their children who used to list reading as their worst subject now consider it their favorite subject. So with reports like that, I would say the motivation is up.
One thing's for sure, the kids at Powell sure seem to be bananas over books, and Principal Ogg has issued them a new challenge. He says if they can read 9,000 books by the end of the school year, he's going to make them the biggest banana split North Baltimore has ever seen. Dick Berry, Toledo 11 News, North Baltimore.
Here we are, January 17th, 1986. Still a slow news day in Northwest Ohio, so maybe journalists at Toledo 11 were grabbing a hamburger at McDonald's for 77 cents or looking at one of those $4,000 Yugos. But Steve Hartman was asking the hard questions. Who controls the spending in your household?
Now come clean. Who really controls the purse strings around your house? You, your spouse, or your child? Do you ever spend any of Mom and Dad's money?
Oh yeah. A lot of it. More than my parents can afford.
In fact, your child spends about $190 a month on movie tickets, ice cream, bubblegum, soft drinks, fast food, and the like.
Most of the ones who are eating the pretzels are the kids, teenagers and the little ones.
Clothing and jewelry. Mostly little things like purses and stuff like that. Mostly clothes.
And they know what they want, usually something Mom and Dad will despise, especially when Mom and Dad find out they paid for it. Yeah.
I feel bad for using their money to buy things that I want.
But yes, there are exceptions, like 18-year-old Joel Vieser.
I work and I spend my own money. I do give my parents room and board, though.
So you pay your parents?
Yes.
Joel takes his parents out to eat about once a week, and he says he's trying to make enough money to send them on a Hawaiian vacation. So next time you feel like cursing your kids for spending too much, don't. After all, they might be buying you something. Steve Hartman, Toledo 11 News.
Now here's a little trade secret. Weather is often the most important part of a newscast, so on a slow news day, that might be the story you get, especially when it's nice on a Tuesday in January. But there are only so many ways to say it's sunny or dry. So you've probably seen a story like this one from Faith Murphy a few times over the years.
Everything was done by hand with the exception of a vacuum cleaner. Then as the equipment was developed, we added the blower and the brushes and the cloth pads and all the things we have today.
Roger Rummel is a car wash connoisseur. His family started the business in 1949. Then the brushes didn't brush without two hands to guide them.
We started out with buckets and mitts and hoses and a lot of manpower.
Rummel says this is his busiest time of the year. Most people come in to wash off the subtle reminders of winter, like slush and salt, but some just like a clean car.
Twice a week, Wednesday and Saturday.
Without fail?
Without fail. It prevents the rust.
That's why you do it?
Yes, it is.
Nobody's coaxing you, your wife's not telling you better go wash the car?
No, I just don't like a dirty car.
Rummel says his machines use soft brushes that won't damage your car's paint job. But he says your license plate will get bent if not secured properly. As you pass through the car washes of life, remember one thing. If you wash your car today, it's sure to rain tomorrow. Faith Murphy, Toledo 11 News.
Let's take you behind the scenes of a typical day at a TV news station like wtol 11. The reporters you see every day bring their ideas to what's called an editorial meeting. Our news team then decides what stories to tell. So imagine the faces in the room for this. February 3rd, 1986, and Evan Rosen says he's heading underground in search of something to drink.
The 1920s, age of the flapper, yes sir, one of those. Age of Al Capone and the big-time gangsters, many of them bootleggers running rum across the Canadian border. Also the age of the speakeasy. On this East Toledo block, a network of tunnels connected speakeasies, providing escape routes during raids. Realtor Bill Lorenzen has bought and sold buildings that once housed illegal bars.
This tunnel, the only remaining one, runs from the basement of Bill Lorenzen's restaurant to the apartment building he now owns. Some 50 years ago, there was a speakeasy upstairs, and when the cops raided, the customers must have scurried away through here like rats.
Lorenzen says he's sorry the city has demolished almost all the speakeasy tunnels, but he says the tunnels can cause building problems.
In front here, we ran into the problem when we were putting the sidewalk in. Every time we put dirt in, they'd have the dirt would cave in where the tunnels were.
Elsie Titcheff's mother owned a Prohibition-era restaurant. She remembers tunnel activity.
Of course, they'd have their drinks when they were playing cards. They had some big stakes there. And then if the dry agents came around, boy, they'd go grab their money, and that's when they more or less used the tunnels.
Bill Lorenzen says he'll preserve the last speakeasy tunnel. After all, he says, not everybody has history right in his basement. Evan Rosen, Toledo 11 News.
Another trade secret for you. A lot of those slow news days happen on the holidays. Government offices are shut down, people are taking vacations, or they just have plans to do something else. So, when Valentine's Day came around in 1986, it was once again time to get creative. Toledo 11 could have talked about new candies on the market like Airheads, as well as cherries and Push Pops. Instead, Dick Berry went to Valentine Street to find a Valentine's Day story to tell.
This time of year, it's no ordinary neighborhood. A heart on the front door, Cupid in the window.
This is Valentine Street in East Toledo. It's a place for love, and it's a place to come and meet and make new close personal friends.
Does it mean anything extra special because you live on Valentine Street?
It's kind of fun when you send your Valentines to your house and write Valentine Street on it. It's kind of neat because I send them to my kids.
Actually, the mail carrier says not many Valentine cards are sent.
These are mostly older people and their parents come over, their kids come over to their houses, but no.
That's kind of sad when you think about it.
Sad, I want one too.
At least one famous person is from Valentine Street.
Woody Hayes called me up Father's Day a couple of years ago.
He did? Is that why you have the Ohio State stuff on?
Oh, he's my boy.
He's your boy.
You better believe it.
And one woman always waited for a certain famous person.
Would you have liked to have spent Valentine's Day on Valentine Street with Elvis?
Sure would.
What do you think you guys would have done?
Well, probably went out to dinner.
Some houses are painted red. The people living in them like to wear red pants.
This street was named after a man, Valentine.
I thought they had all kinds of parties here and fireworks and...
We're all retirees around here.
It's not a real big party scene every year, huh?
No.
That was Dick Berry. So what's the equivalent of a slow news day at your job? No customers, no clients, nothing to do? How about in the classroom? Ever fall asleep during one of those slow days in school? Faith Murphy found a unique solution back in 1986 that stopped the jarring bell from ringing during a nap.
It's sort of like playing musical chairs. You're sitting in class, then the music starts. And you've got 3 minutes to get to your destination.
It gives the kids an idea of how much time they have left for our bells. There's just one at the beginning and one at the end. So it kind of gives us an idea how much time we have in between.
And even though it is a little old-fashioned...
Well, I don't really mind it that much because I like old music, so I kind of like it. I kind of enjoy listening to it, as a matter of fact.
Some think it's soothing.
When you're sitting in class and you hear a bell, you kind of jump. But when the music comes, you don't really jump or anything.
Principal Bill Williams says the idea started when the school did, 15 years ago.
It's no different than if you had chimes or instead of bells or whatever, but we have music.
Williams says the idea of using music instead of the traditional bell system is part of the school's original concept of open learning. Even though these students appear unrestricted, if they're not in class when the music stops,
They're tardy and they would have to be marked tardy, and then that's reported to the office.
So maybe this idea would ring true at other schools.
All you need to know is when you're allowed to be let out of your period. I don't care what's on, I just wanted to get out.
On second thought, maybe not.
Well, as we've shown you, sometimes the news doesn't exactly break. Sometimes it just waltzes in. Like on a day when headlines were few and far between, we turn to something with a little more rhythm. The tango. Yes, that tango. It made a comeback in the 80s, and Dick Berry stepped onto the dance floor.
It's progressive, expressive, and supposedly easy to pick up. The tango is making its way back onto dance floors. Dance studios report a revival in the passionate Latin step, thanks in part to the popular Broadway play, Tango Argentina. Some are even organizing tango cruises to Buenos Aires.
It's a beautiful dance. It's very creative, it's very dramatic, and it's expressive. So if a person has a creative outlet that they want to pursue, tango will help them achieve that.
The intensity of the tango depends on the intensity of the couple. Most times, a man feels like a man.
It lets a lady really express herself with dancing with a man. Makes the man a more dominant person with dancing with a partner.
Like most dance crazes, the tango will soon fade. Other sexy Latin dances, like the conga and hustle, are expected to take its place. Despite the tango trend, you'd probably have a hard time locating a nightclub in town that plays tango music. The best piece of advice is to find a band that takes requests. Dick Berry, Toledo 11 News.
When the news is slow, sometimes you just got to look up. No, we're not talking about Superman or a plane, but yes, it's a bird. Buzzards circling above, to be exact. So grab your binoculars and maybe a wide-brimmed hat. Amy Ashcroft takes us into the wilderness.
There he is. Buzzard watching is a big deal around Cleveland. People bundle up the kids, bring their binoculars, and bird watch till their fingers turn blue. The Cleveland Parks people even have put up an official buzzard board, not to mention have one of the buzzards in a cage so that you can see it up close. But how do people in the Toledo area feel about this?
I think it's interesting because you hear about the buzzards at Hinckley. It's a big deal. We say Hinckley Schminkley.
Hinckley Schminkley? Well, after all, buzzards are native to most parts of the country. And for the last several years, 40 of them have made Oak Openings Preserve their warm weather roost.
Early in the morning at the corner of Oak Openings Parkway and Girdham Road, we can see them before they take off. If it's a nice day, they're gone rather early, just around sunrise.
A buzzard is actually a turkey vulture. With a 6-foot wingspan, it's one of the biggest birds going. But buzzards sure don't get high marks for beauty. The first sighting of Toledo turkey vultures at Oak Openings was March 10th, 5 days earlier than their Hinckley counterparts. Maybe they know something about spring we don't. If you'd like to get a bird's eye view of a turkey vulture, you can come out Saturday, April 5th to Oak Openings for their second annual Buzzard Boosters Breakfast Bash. It starts at 5:30 in the morning. They'll supply the coffee and donuts. Amy Ashcroft, Toledo 11 News.
When it comes to tying the knot, most couples pick a special spot. Maybe it's a church, maybe it's a beach, maybe a rustic barn. For one local pair, it was about rolling out in a different way. Faith Murphy takes us to the bowling alley.
Today is the most important day of Ted and Debbie Skernecki's life, but not important enough to put off indulging in their favorite sport, bowling. Ted came up with the idea even before he and Debbie started dating 8.5 years ago. He's been an avid bowler since he was old enough to hold a ball.
It's something I wanted to do.
And what about your wife? How'd she feel about it?
She's here.
Debbie was a little skeptical about stepping onto the lane in her wedding gown, but she bowled pretty well in spite of it. And as for her husband's brilliant idea...
He's never, for all the time we went together, he's never ceased to amaze me on some of the stunts he's pulled. So no, this is pretty run-of-the-mill for him, actually.
Among the wedding gifts was, you guessed it, a bowling ball and chain, a symbol of imprisonment the two of them don't seem to mind. After the last game is played, the Skerneckis take off for another kind of entertainment in Florida. And you can bet they'll have a wonderful time. Rumor has it there's a bowling tournament going on there right now.
We wrap up on April 12th, 1986, Slow News Day, so why not spend it with someone who talks faster than most people think? We're heading to the auction block with Evan Rosen.
Got, but it be 20 on, but I 20 now 5. Hit 20, got 5, 25. You say 5, 25.
Farm auctioneer Arthur Duffett knows his audience. The 83-year-old was born on a farm, grew up with farmers. He's even done a little reaping himself. And his rural background has instilled in him some old-fashioned auctioneer values.
A good auctioneer is the one that's honest. When you tell anybody anything, they'll depend on you, what you tell them. You don't try to pull any tricks on them. Told you, dollar bill right there, number 84. Good heavy pin.
67 years ago, Duffett auctioned his first head of cattle. He was 16, no license, of course you didn't need one then. Now many consider Duffett the father of Ohio farm auctioneers. But he says that didn't just happen, he had to make it happen.
I practice a lot of time. Right in front of a looking glass is about the best place. Practicing, you can see yourself how you're operating and what you do.
Arthur Duffett says he's helped more than a dozen kids get started as auctioneers, and he says the ones that make it master 2 basic skills. They learn to judge value, and also they learn to talk from here instead of from here. Evan Rosen, Toledo 11 News in Fremont.
So whether it's a dancing trend, a water skiing squirrel, or Toledo's fashion sense, sometimes the best stories come from the slowest news days, because even when the headlines are light, there's still plenty to talk about. That's it for this week's Trip to the Vault. I'm Dan Cummins. Before we go, we want to make sure there's no confusion here. Just because it may be a slow news day doesn't mean journalists are not hard at work. Remember that toilet trouble we told you about when we started? Toledo 11 didn't flush the story without following through.
Some wanted them on the hill, some wanted them near the water, some wanted them behind the post office. The seasons passed.
Park seems so natural, frankly, and a John seems so,
In the time it took to construct many of the buildings on the waterfront, City Council moved full circle. Contractors will dig the latrine on the site of this sculpture, first approved more than a year ago. At $416,000, Toledo is paying more and getting less than it ever expected. The city must move the sculpture and plant the shrubs itself. The final plan abandons the harbor master's office, once a selling point, and the price tag drew 3 no votes.
I think the money, as I'd said, is better spent in the neighborhoods, and that's what I was in favor of, that's what I campaigned on, and that's why I voted no for the potties in the park.
But promenade potties proved pseudo-philosophers' platitudes. What could go wrong did. Council wanted showers, Plan Commission didn't. Low bids contained conflict of interest. One citizen hired an architect of her own. The number of options multiplied. And it's not over yet. With 15,000 signatures, the voters can overturn the city council. Sure, that's not likely to happen, but given the long, strange history of this project, city officials are learning to be surprised at nothing. Stuart Watson, Toledo 11 News.